of the credit. I'd also like to acknowledge very quickly my area, which is in Collingwood, which is the territory of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We are very grateful to have this opportunity to work on these lands, and by doing so, we give our respect to the first inhabitants. We are grateful for the opportunity to host this competition again this year with the help of many volunteers who have promoted and acted as judges for this event. Thank you, of course, to Melanie, Jinjay, Mark, Teresa, Dan, Jennifer, and Morella. We could not have done this without you. Last year, 2 of our Canadian finalists pitched, as Alec had mentioned, on the world stage and took home the 2nd and 3rd place prizes. Flight Material Sciences and Genesis Bioindustries. Thank you to the many startups who took their time to enter, and the finalists, of course, who are joining us tonight. Now I'd like to turn things back over to Alec. Thank you so much.
Cindy, thank you so much for those, wonderful words, and thank you, Melanie, for those great thoughts to kick this off. Again, it's such a pleasure to be able to do this with Startup Canada, and it's only because of the ecosystem building that you're doing that the Canadian startup community is as strong as it is today. So thank you again. With that, it's also not possible for us to have our national finals without judges. So it's my pleasure to introduce our 4 judges today that will be evaluating the companies, our 9 finalists presenting companies. First, we have Daniel Bichon, the business advisor for the Brampton Entrepreneur Center. Daniel has been a business advisor, and has been working with the city of Brampton for over 20 years now, focused on the development of the Innovation District in downtown Brampton, and is really focused on supporting small business needs, issues, and being an advisor and mentor to small businesses developing across the Brampton area. We also have, as you just met, Cindy Guyon, the CEO of RVC Worldwide. Cindy is a experienced technologist, as well as now the leader of RVC Worldwide, which is focused on helping ethical founders of high quality validated tech startups find the right ethical investors. It's also my pleasure to welcome Nikhil Sinha, the CEO of One Valley. Nikhil is our CEO here at One Valley, where he leads one of the world's largest entrepreneurship and innovation services companies. Prior to that, he spent years as the Chief Business and Chief Content Officer at Coursera, building one of the world's largest higher education platforms. And certainly last but not least, Seth Haubin, the VP of Business Development at One Valley. Seth previously led One Valley's Boston Innovation Center, where he supported over 130 early stage companies that raised nearly $400 million to date. So again, a big thank you to all of our judges who are participating tonight, and you'll be hearing more from them in the coming minutes as we get into the Q&A with each one of our presenting companies. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to get into the startup pitch portion of the night. Quickly, we'll showcase the 9 companies that are going to be presenting tonight, and then we'll get into the presentations. We'll be hearing from Sapur, Braze Mobility, Xpan, Earthos, Inersion, Bicep, IntelliJex, Query, and last but not least, Safety Docs Global. What are they competing for? Well, the first place winner tonight is going to get $15,000 in cash prizes, as well as an all expense paid trip to Riyadh to compete in the EWC Global Finals, where over $1 million in cash prizes will be given out. And our second place winner gets $10,000 and the potential for a wild card seat at the Global Finals. Given the incredible performance of Canadian startups in the years before, it's always exciting to see multiple companies have the chance to potentially move through to the Global Finals. So a lot of money being given out here today, some great prizes, and most importantly, that bridge to that Global Final event. So let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce our first presenting company today. That is going to be Mohammed Farahani, the founder and CEO of Sapur Technologies.
$3.6 trillion is the cost of energy we use in chemical separation processes every year. Because you're using a massively energy-intensive process called distillation. Distillation simply works by heating and cooling, and the fossil fuel we burn for heating emits more than 10% of the world's carbon emissions every year. Distillation also consumes 1.2 trillion liters of water in the heating and cooling process. Sepure is changing that. We're replacing the driving force of the separation from thermal to mechanical. We pump chemical mixtures through our patented chemical-resistant nanofiltration membranes, and its nano-sized pores selectively separates chemicals at the molecular level. In fact, by removing the use of heat, our technology reduces the energy consumption and carbon emissions by 90%, while making the process 50% more economical compared to distillation. Our industrial solution has an ROI of less than 2 years for our customers. Unlike conventional membranes, we have developed a robust and chemical-resistant membrane that can work in harsh environments. We have developed our technology for more than 6 years using 16 million Canadian dollar funding. Sepure's membrane was born during my PhD project, and at Sepure, we've taken this technology to another level. We produce over 800 kilometers of hollow fiber membranes in-house and tested over 2,000 membrane modules across 10 industrial projects with some of the biggest names in the industry. And our product is protected by 2 patents. Sepure's technology can be applied in many applications in growing markets like vegetable oil, cannabis oil, biodiesel, semicon, petrochemical, pharmaceutical, and oil and gas. And as you know, Canada is the biggest canola oil producer, and our current focus is vegetable oil industry. So our technology is ready to be implemented in vegetable oil production, refining process, and biodiesel production from used cooking oil, so in different places in the value chain. Our solution package has 2 parts. The basic product is the industrial system that will be designed by Sepure and manufactured by an OEM partner. Sepure will be manufacturing and selling its membrane modules or nanofilters, creating recurring revenue. We have a huge traction in vegetable oil market with several flagship projects. We completed a pilot with a vegetable oil company, and 3 pilot projects are ongoing with world's largest vegetable oil companies from Japan, United States, and Canada. We have already received $300,000 of revenue from them. We recently started a $3.6 million project with a Canadian vegetable oil company in Alberta, and we received $1.8 million as a grant from Emissions Reduction Alberta. In other industries, such as cannabis oil, semiconductor, and energy, market leaders in Canada and US are testing our membranes in field. We have a huge potential addressable market of $10 billion as of today, and our existing customer pipeline can lead to $500 million in recurring revenue. Then the next big milestone for us would be building our membrane production facility in Alberta in 2022. I'm Dr. Mohammed Farahani, founder, CEO, and CTO of Sepure. I received Innovators Under 35 Award from MIT Technology Review for developing Sepure's technology. Our technology management and business development team have over 50 years of combined industrial experience in membrane scale-up, production, and commercialization. And in our advisory board, we have Prof. Neil Chung and Prof. Kranz, 2 of the world's top membrane scientists. At the end, I would like to share that we are currently raising a Series A of $15 million, and more than 70% of that round is committed. Please talk to us if you're interested to know more about Sepure. Thank you so much.
Mohammed, thank you very much for the wonderful pitch. It was a great opportunity to learn more about Sepure. I'd love to throw it to our judges for any questions. Maybe Nikhil, do you want to kick us off with the first question?
Sure. Thank you, Alec. And thanks, Mohammed, for that great presentation. I saw in your revenue slide 2 sources of revenue, systems revenue and sort of recurring revenue. Could you talk a little bit more about what the revenue model is, what the unit economics of that revenue model are, and what the buildup is to the sort of projections that you have on that slide?
Yeah, so thanks for your question. It's a basically printer and cartridge model or razor blade model that they have to actually purchase a system which is a one-time cost. It's going to work for them for, let's say, 20 years. And then there is a filter or nanofiltration membrane that has to be replaced every 1.5 years or every 1 year. So that's basically something that, we call it recurring revenue, the filters that has to be replaced, and we are making money out of that. And then the one-time basically investment of the CapEx is the system basically.
Thank you.
Any other questions from our judges? Oh, Cindy, by all means.
So first of all, congratulations. It sounds like a wonderful idea and company off the top. And congratulations on the grants and non-diluted funds that you've raised so far.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is really around the money that you've raised so far and your usage of funds. So how you've used the funds that you've raised and how you're going to use the funds that you're about to raise.
Yeah, so we've raised $3.5 million Canadian dollar in investments from big investors in the world, like SOSV 500 startups. And we are raising $15 million US, and that's going to be mainly for the manufacturing as well as completing or, pilot projects and in-field implementations, and taking the product to the next level, which is basically, implementing the technology across multiple industries.
Thank you. Any additional questions from our judges?
Sure, Mohammed, thank you very much. Fantastic presentation, exciting stuff you're working on. And I'm just curious, as you think about kind of the different vertical paths, obviously you've targeted a couple, and if you could just talk to kind of going after a bunch of different verticals versus focusing on one specifically.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, our focus is vegetable oil industry, that we have most of our customers in that market. So I would say 90% of the focus is on vegetable oil industry. And we are still around 10% of our focus is in different markets, because we need to create a pipeline for future once we have owned a big portion of the vegetable oil market, and we want to basically move to other industries. So we are working currently with the biggest names in the industry. Unfortunately, I can't name them. So I would say the biggest vegetable oil company in the world. So a lot of our customers that currently we have pilot with them, they are like $100 billion revenue, $50 billion revenue, and they have like 50, 60 refineries that we can actually implement our technology in those refineries.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, I think we have time for one final question. Any questions from you, Daniel?
Sorry about that. I couldn't get the mute button to work on here. Yeah. Now, if you do win this competition from a global perspective, like what would be your next vertical of attack outside of the vegetable oil industry?
Yeah, so the next would be semicon, and as well as energy, oil and gas. So in both verticals, we're working with big names in the industry. So for energy, we're working with the top 3 energy company in the world, and they're currently testing our membranes in their plant in the US. And so I think these 2 verticals are the most important ones after vegetable oil that we want to go to.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, judges, for all those great questions. And thank you very much, Mohammed, for the wonderful presentation and great answers to those questions. Thank you again. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome our second presenter to the virtual stage. Next up is Dr. Pooja Viswanathan, founder and CEO of Braze Mobility.
Hi, everyone. Meet David Watson. David had been using a power wheelchair for many years, but 2 years ago, staff at his long-term care facility were about to take his powered wheelchair, his only means of independent mobility, away from him. You see, David needs to drive in a tilted position and often can't see what's around him, so he was having accidents. Staff felt they had to choose David's autonomy or the safety of everyone in the home. This is not just David's story. 20% of power wheelchair users experience at least one major collision within a year, and 11% of them are hospitalized. Accidents like this can lead to embarrassment and even exclusion from the use of power wheelchairs altogether, even when no other option for independent mobility exists. I saw this as a violation of a fundamental human right and co-founded Braze Mobility, where we've created the world's first blind spot sensors for wheelchairs. Our blind spot sensors can be added to any wheelchair, transforming it into a smart wheelchair. Our system provides feedback to the user regarding location and proximity to obstacles through intuitive lights, sounds, and vibrations. My name is Pooja Vishwanathan, and I'm the CEO and co-founder. I have a PhD in assistive technology and robotics and have been leading smart wheelchair research and international collaborations for over a decade. My co-founder, Dr. Alex Mihailidis, is a world leader in technology and aging with over 150 peer-reviewed publications in the field and lives with spinal cord injury. We have expertise in accessibility, caregiving, design, manufacturing, and more recently onboarded an industry veteran with over 25 years experience who has successfully negotiated OEM agreements and 2 exits. We have wheelchair users on our team who drive our innovation forward, pun intended. The mobility aids market is $1.14 billion and is growing as our population continues to age. Our entrance market is nearly 4 million wheelchair users in North America, up to 91% of whom can benefit from smart wheelchairs, according to researchers at the US Department of Veterans Affairs. We've already filed patents in North America, Europe, and Asia. We have vast connections to clinicians who are gatekeepers of assistive technology. Our system adapts to the varying abilities of our users at no additional manufacturing cost to us. We also have strong traction with key players in an industry with high barriers to entry. We've already mastered supply chain and have strong gross margins of at least 75%. We launched commercially last February, and to date, we've sold over 100 units, generating over $150K in revenue, with our largest customer being the US Department of Veterans Affairs. We also set ourselves up for growth outside the VA by partnering with the largest dealers in US and Canada, giving us access to over 70% of market share and more than 700 reps. We're currently negotiating with a leading wheelchair manufacturer for an OEM agreement, which will increase our revenue by 8x. And we've got more in the pipeline. Next year, we'll start rolling out our data analytics platform, which will revolutionize wheelchair training and assessment, and eventually help us build more accessible cities through smart mobility while creating new sources of recurring revenue. As for David, this is him just a few months ago, still driving his powered wheelchair. With our blind spot sensors, David has independent mobility and dignity. Staff can support his autonomy without compromising on safety. David's friend and advocate has peace of mind, because at Braze, we believe that mobility is a fundamental human right, not a privilege. Our mission is to help millions of wheelchair users all over the world navigate fully, independently, and safely. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing more about Braze Mobility and my first introduction to smart wheelchairs. So exciting to learn about the innovation that's happening in the space. I'd love to turn it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe Seth, do you want to kick us off?
Certainly, Alec, and thank you for the presentation. Great mission. Great to hear about your product. I'm just curious. Congratulations on the first 100 units sold. I'm curious kind of what you've learned from those that first cohort of sales, both from your sales strategy as well as your product.
Yeah, we've learned so much. One of the biggest things with assistive technologies is it's so important to consider your customers' feedback and to ensure that the system is actually accessible. And so you end up with a lot of assistive technologies that are actually abandoned fairly early on because they weren't really built for the end user. So one of our major focuses has actually been to innovate along with our end users. And so we had a pretty long beta client program where even before we were selling commercially, we had our beta client customers that were involved at every stage of the process, whether it was kind of early R&D or even sort of some of the strategies to get to market. So a lot of what we learned was how important customizability is. We've learned the importance of reimbursement, because affordability is a huge factor. And in fact, one of the reasons we've been so successful with our initial sales and getting approved by the dealers is because our price point is strategically under $3,000 USD, which is where we find a lot of success with Medicaid, state Medicaid programs. So we've actually had a lot of success with getting the units funded as well. Those are just some of the lessons learned.
Thank you.
Any other questions from our judges?
If I
Yeah.
can- Go ahead, Daniel.
No. Okay. Thank you. How do you plan to manage the shift from a small business, like you're roughly doing about 100, and with a revenue of with the OEM, the OEM could be 8 times, and how would you make that a larger scalable business?
Yeah. So we all of our supply chain. So all of the people that we're actually getting our I guess our sort of ingredients for making a lot of the products. We do final assembly here in Canada, but we do get a lot of our parts from US and overseas. Those are already qualified contractors. And so we will be able to actually scale with them. So they're able to do the low volumes we do today, but they're also able to handle all of the high volumes. And so we did actually strategically pick our supply chain based on their ability to scale as well. And we will eventually actually be contracting out our assembly as well. So we're in the search right now for also assembly contractors, but the rest of our supply chain has already been selected so that they can scale as we scale.
Perfect. So you're not worried about getting to, okay, perfect. Thank you.
No, and in fact, we've already started tooling one of our parts. So we have a strategy for, when we hit X volumes, we'll start injection molding our parts as we go along. And so we've already figured out all of
I think we may have lost connection for one moment. We'll give it a moment for it to come back. If unfortunately, if we're not able to get Pooja back on in the next couple seconds, we'll end the Q&A and transition over to the, here we have her connecting from another device.
Hello.
Well played. Well played.
My laptop spontaneously died, so.
Well, I'm glad you made it through the presentation. So thank you for your question, Daniel. I think we have time for one final question.
Thank you, Pooja, for the presentation and for the important work you're doing. I was intrigued to hear the business model is pitched to the B2C customer with reimbursements and Medicaid and all of that stuff associated with that, rather than being pitched to the wheelchair manufacturers, for whom this would be a sort of seems an obvious addition to the capabilities that they would build in. So I guess 2 questions. One is, help me understand why the focus on the B2C versus B2B, and secondly, what sort of competitive moat do you have with these wheelchair manufacturers being able to sort of replicate that technology and build it into their own devices?
Okay, yeah. So let me answer the first question. So we don't actually have a B2C channel. Our 2 main sales channels are the Veterans Affairs, who we do sell to directly, but that's an institutional sale. And then the other parties that we sell to are the dealerships. So that's a B2B2C sale. So we don't actually sell to the customers. In fact, we can't, because for Medicaid, Medicare reimbursements, you actually do need a durable medical equipment provider involved. And so that's actually one of the reasons we pivoted earlier on from a B2C model more to the B2B and B2B2C models. So that's the answer to your first question. The second question with regards to moat is the way that these wheelchair manufacturers work is they really don't work on anything other than their bread and butter, which is the seating systems. In fact, their model is to sort of partner with other companies, do OEM or acquisitions of companies of different parts of the chair. So you will have a wheelchair manufacturer that partners with a cushion company, and then they work with another company that does all of their electronics. So they have very limited R&D internally to work on these other aspects that are sort of external to their bread and butter. And so what we actually have is an ideal position where we can do an OEM and a potential acquisition opportunity as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all judges for your questions. Cindy, I apologize we didn't get to you. We'll throw the first one in your direction next time. And thank you very much, Pooja, for the incredible presentation and best of luck with Braze Mobility and your mission.
Thank you.
With that, it is my pleasure to welcome our third presenting CEO to the stage. Let's welcome Zaid Atto, founder and CEO of Xpan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zaid Atto. I'm the founder and CEO of Xpan. My background is in biomedical engineering, and I've come to believe that simple ideas often create the biggest impact in medicine, and that smaller is better when it comes to minimally invasive surgery. So at Xpan, we work with forward-thinking minimal invasive surgeons to redefine access, surgical access. And to do that, we're developing a miniaturized, universal, and expandable trocar system. So 3 and up to 6 of these devices called trocars are used to essentially create access between the outside world and the inside of the patient for many of minimal invasive surgeries. And the way they're inserted in the body is that they're literally stabbed or punctured to create this access. The biggest area where these trocars are used is in abdominal surgeries, where there's over 15 million cases that happen every year worldwide. And one of the very first problems that occurs with this is during initial entry with the trocars. This is because of the excessive use of force and inappropriate use of force. It creates up to 50% of all complications in minimal invasive surgeries. Additionally, even if surgeons use smaller trocars, when they encounter intraoperative complications or bleeding, they often have to expand the trocar or to take it out, put a bigger one right through the same spot so that they can use bigger instruments to tackle these problems. So our solution to these problems is a trocar system that uses the concept of expansion. And while this is an easy or simple idea, it is easier said than done. Which is why we've developed a patent-pending expandable trocar technology that allows surgeons to enter the body with a 3mm trocar that is up to 16 times smaller than the current standard devices. And once it's inside the patient, it can be easily and seamlessly expanded right in the tissue to the conventional 5mm and 12mm sizes. What this does is it allows surgeons to enter the body with a lot less force and creating a lot less morbidity and faster healing for the patient. And at the same time, it allows surgeons to easily use bigger instruments, a full range of instruments, and tackle complications in a very efficient and speedy manner. This is an exciting opportunity in a relatively innovation-deprived market. However, this market is a relatively large market with a $1.3 billion worldwide and over $520 million in the United States alone. Over the past few years, we've focused a lot on R&D. We've filed 2 patent applications. We've raised money from life science investors in Ontario and Silicon Valley. And we started a series of animal studies, which are currently ongoing and are very positive so far. We're currently focused on manufacturing to support our regulatory application, which is projected to be in the next year. Following the clearance, we will be piloting in some select US-based hospitals. We have a well-accomplished team with members in the Silicon Valley that are serial entrepreneurs with a successful track record of minimal invasive surgical product mergers and acquisitions. We also have a vertically integrated manufacturing partner. As a summary, we're developing a miniaturized and universal expandable trocar system that's enabling a shift towards safer and less invasive surgeries. We're targeting a large, growing, yet innovation-deprived market, and we have a fast-to-market strategy with an accomplished team. Finally, I'd like to ask you to think about whether if you're ever going to have a life-saving abdominal surgery, whether you want to be stabbed with the standard trocars on the left versus the Xpan trocar on the right. Thanks very much, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you very much, Zaid. It was, very interesting to learn about these devices. I personally don't particularly want to get stabbed with either of them, but the one on the right certainly looks a lot better than the one on the left. Let's throw it to our judges. Cindy, since we deprived you of a question last time, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. That was a spectacular project. I love the fact that you have so much traction in terms of acceptance through the clinical trials already. And I just wanted to kind of go with that because you mentioned that you're raised right now that you're looking at, first of all, how much, and you're saying that a lot of it's going towards manufacturing and a small beta. Can you go into a little bit more detail on your go-to-market strategy and the usage of funds?
So just want to highlight that we already did the fundraising for our seed round, and currently that money is going towards the current activities of manufacturing and the regulatory activities. However, once we get the clearance, we will be raising a second round to support higher volume and additional clinical traction.
Thank you.
Just following up from Cindy's question about sort of the business model, what are the unit economics of these devices, and what does it cost to make? What does it cost to sell? And what are you seeing in terms of revenue projections in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's an excellent question. So the unit economics is essentially these devices are single use. So the market says that I'm showing here is for single use products. Typically on average, the unit sale price is about $50 per unit. However, for our premium device with the added benefits that we're providing, we're going to charge a premium on top of that. It is not uncommon for medical device companies to be creating up to 60-70% of gross margins. And that's what we currently, are projecting. In terms of the next 3 to 5 years, in terms of revenues, we expect to be capturing up to 5% of the market. So that would be up to $25 million in revenues.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, quick question. Like, what prevents others, because there's obviously competitors in the market, for doing what you're doing? And what is your competitive advantage currently?
Right. So the current competitors in the market are very large medical device companies who have unfortunately abandoned this market size because they innovated in it and reached a plateau in terms of innovation in the past 10 to 20 years. The concept of expandable or dilating technologies is not absolutely new to them. They've developed, there's one company that has developed a radially dilating trocar, which turned out to be really terrible in the way that it works. There's a lot of, patient related issues, manufacturing defects, and surgical frustrations. And it also does not allow entry as a 3 millimeter diameter. So you can only insert the device and change it to 5 or 12. And you cannot change it between 3 to 5 to 12 and back. So it has a lot of issues, and we're really changing the game here by creating our expansion technology. That's a novelty that we're bringing, which solves a lot of these problems and some more that are encountered generally in all of the trocar kind of markets. And we have 2 patent pending applications right now to cover the technologies that we've developed.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our judges and Zaid. Unfortunately, we're going to have to move on to our next presenting company, but it was great to learn more about the work you're doing in the trocar space.
Thanks very much.
And with that, it's my pleasure to welcome our next presenting CEO to the stage. Let's welcome Nuha Siddiqui, CEO and co-founder of Earthos.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nuha, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Earthos, and we create plant-powered materials for our planet. Now, we know everyone is aware that plastic pollution has been a massive problem that we've been facing globally, With over 18 billion tons of plastic polluting our oceans every year, by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in our oceans. On top of all of that, about half of all plastic pollution is directly related to packaging and single use. With growing consumer trends and government influence in this space, industries have started to transition to sustainable materials, but there are still significant barriers to entry. My co-founders and I started Earthos with the mission to make this transition to sustainable materials a natural one. We transform agricultural byproducts into alternatives for traditional single-use plastic inputs, known as resins. Our novel materials fit seamlessly into existing infrastructure, but also result in significant environmental benefits. Our products are designed for the multi-billion-dollar plastic industry across multiple applications in the single and limited use space. Despite the negative environmental impact of plastics, the industry continues to grow due to a lack of alternative sustainable solutions. And that's why, over years of research, we've narrowed down the two things that matter most to our industry and to our planet: compostability and compatibility. From a compatibility standpoint, our materials don't require specialized infrastructure at the production or adoption level, and we can avoid costly retooling of existing systems. We're also compatible with global compliance requirements like FDA to ensure maximum versatility. On the sustainability side of things, not only are we diverting plastic, but our materials are fully compostable and manufactured through a clean tech process that uses over less than 95% of energy and water compared to plastic production, without all the toxins. Our goal is to look at the industry from top to bottom and find a way to evolve what's already there. That's why we work alongside single-use plastic manufacturers to directly switch out their existing inputs. But we also collaborate with large CPGs who source materials like ours for a variety of different applications within their supply chains. So far, our early adopters are thrilled. Last year, we successfully validated our first line of resins with global brands like AB InBev. We created a plant-powered alternative to their plastic caps that met their performance and environmental requirements, making it one of the most circular solutions in the industry today, without any disruption. As a female-founded company, we strongly believe that the most diverse teams build the best products. Our vision has resonated with some of Canada's top talent and some of the world's best investors. Since incorporating in 2018, we've rapidly expanded our team to 20 and attracted world-class engineers and scientists to develop truly innovative, sustainable materials. Our core business team brings over 30 years of experience building scalable impact ventures. Our R&D team consists of stellar PhDs and master graduates from top global universities and bring a wealth of knowledge in chemical engineering and plant biology. In this short period of time, we were also able to raise over $7.3 million in seed funding from incredible investors, including Horizon Ventures, the backers of Zoom and Impossible Foods. We're also honored to be funded by one of Canada's largest clean tech funds, which has allowed us to build out our first pilot demonstration facility here in Toronto, expand our operations in China, and onboard 8 incredible early adopters to our partner pipeline who are eagerly awaiting our next launch commercially in the new year. Our future is looking cleaner and more sustainable. With our upcoming product launch, our potential to make a scalable impact on our industry and on our environment is massive. At Earthos, our vision is to make all single-use plastics plant-powered for our planet. Thank you.
Nuha, thank you for that wonderful pitch. And it's incredible to see the progress that you've already had towards this just overwhelming challenge that we have of creating a more sustainable supply chain in future for our plastics industry. So thank you for sharing the insight and the progress. I'd love to turn it over to our judges for any questions that they might have. Maybe Nikhil, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you so much, Nuha, for that presentation and for the important company you've co-founded. Clearly, eliminating plastics in the single-use environment is one of the most critical objectives of creating a sustainable environment. And there are lots of different alternatives around which people are looking at the same problem. So help me think about sort of what the big competitive environment looks like in terms of what other kinds of solutions and technologies people are working on, and why do you believe that what you've developed is going to be the sort of winning solution?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, our solution is in response to some of the barriers that existing bioplastics have had. There are alternatives like PLA, there's also recycled plastics, there are eco-friendly alternatives, but the problem we're facing is massive, and the solutions that are required for various parts of the supply chain are versatile. I'd say that our competitive advantage is truly making sure that we're building a standardized material that can truly be a drop-in replacement and compatible both on a production scalability for a resin supplier like us, but also from an adoption point of view where a manufacturer doesn't have to spend additional money or resources in adopting it. So compatibility is number one, where our resins truly are revolutionary. And then on the sustainability side, there are a lot of other solutions that may be biodegradable, they may be recyclable. Our solutions are targeted towards compostability because we really do see the single-use plastic space having a clear advantage being compostable because of the lack of recyclable infrastructure that exists for smaller single-use items. So I'd say those are our two key factors, but it really comes down to the key applications that we can cater to, the standardized materials that we do have, and our scalability.
Thank you.
Nuha, thank you very much. To echo kind of everyone's point, congratulations on kind of the business so far and the mission at hand. And I'm curious, you referenced a successful pilot so far and kind of positive results. I'm curious if you just talk to your projections for the next 2 to 3 years in terms of customers and revenue, and if everything goes according to plan, kind of where you think you'll be.
Yeah, it's something we're currently working on. We're also planning on raising our Series A next year to help fund some of our commercial scale up. At the moment, our post-commercial launch revenue targets are almost $10 million. So we've been able to in-house create a pilot demonstration plant that can be replicated 3 times to help us reach those revenue targets with our early partners. So within the near future, we're hitting some pretty big revenue targets, but it'll only scale exponentially as we continue to grow with our partners.
Great, thank you.
And I think we have time for one final question. Cindy or Daniel, any of you have a burning question that you want to bring to Nuha?
I could go. I do have a question on your current client validation. Do you have any companies right now that are on board with this process and have that will be with you as you kind of navigate into the go-to-market strategy?
Yes, for sure. So we work both with brands and with manufacturers, and we've already lined up about 8 different industry partners, one of which is AB InBev, which is a large-scale brand. And we've been able to integrate within their existing manufacturing line. So that's one of our key partners, but that's just one of our 8.
Wonderful. Well, Nuha, thank you so much for the time and the presentation today. Thank you again to the judges for the very thoughtful questions, and the best of luck at the next stage of development.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
With that, we're ready to welcome our next presenting company to the stage. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hanif Montazeri, the CEO of Enersion.
Hello, everyone. This is Hanif Montazeri. I am co-founder and CEO of Enersion. We started a company from University of Toronto and MIT in Boston 5 years ago. And the mission of our company, or what we offer at our company, is a new categories of the product, which is called trigeneration. What is a trigeneration? A trigeneration is a piece of hardware that produces cooling, heating, and electricity in one integrated package. And what our customer receive is 70% reduction on electricity with 0 emission. So how do we offer such a massive saving to our customer? Let's look at electricity generation. So a typical solar panel is able only to convert 20% of the solar energy into electricity. And the remaining of the solar energy would be in the form of heat that dissipates away from the solar panel. And this is not necessarily unique to solar panel. All different ways that you produce electricity for our cities, you would end up losing between 60 to 80% in the form of waste heat. And once you transmit that electricity to cities, you lose another 10%. So a consumer is basically receiving between 10 to 30% of the total inlet energy that you had at the consumer side. So while most other companies are focusing on optimizing the energy consumption at the consumer level, the mission of our company had been to focus on how to take advantage of this massive amount of waste heat that is being thrown out without any use. So how did we tackle that? So let's focus on our solar trigeneration. And for our customers, what we do, we install a particular type of solar panels called PVT panels. And these solar panels, just like a regular solar panel, convert 20% of the solar energy into form of electricity, but they also produce hot water. Basically, they gather the remaining of the thermal energy in the form of hot water, wherein during cold months, we are basically using this hot water to warm up the building. And during summer months, we are converting this hot water directly into cooling. And of course, that's a difficult part. So in the last 5 years, we had invented and patented a new type of chiller or air conditioning system that directly converts heat into cooling without using electricity. And the best part is that we get rid of all the synthesized refrigerants that commonly use in chillers and replace it with water. We have a portfolio of 30 patents globally, and the technology works based on using nanoporous materials. Around 6 grams of our nanoporous materials have the same surface area as the entire football field, and that's how we have managed to achieve that. So next time that you are, once you basically purchase your very first electrical car and you decided to install a solar panel to supply the electricity to your car, please think about an urgent trigeneration system that is providing you 4 times more energy per square feet and provide you basically heating, cooling, and electricity. And the payback period for your solar system would be almost half of the regular solar panel. With that, I'm going to look forward to your question, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Hanif. Wonderful to learn about the work you're doing at Enersion. I'd love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe Daniel, I know I robbed you of a question last time. Do you have anything to kick us off with?
You know, after 18 months of being unmuted and muted, still can't get it right. So just out of curiosity, is this product currently in any locations at the moment? Are you working with any partners specifically with this product, or do you have any tested in any locations within the GTA?
So we did pilot test our very first unit in the back of a data center in 2019, and currently we are having close to a $1 million sales order at this point. So the very first system we are deploying this in a month for a 10,000 square feet building, and there are basically we have a number of sales orders that we need to fulfill in the next basically months and upcoming years.
Questions from any of our other judges?
Thank you for the presentation. Couple of questions. Really, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to ask 2 questions in the form of one. You've been in existence 5 years. Tell us a little bit about how you've been funded over this period of time. And then secondly, you know, I was struck by your last comment, which is the next time we're thinking about, you know, solar panels, think about the Enersion system. That suggests a B2C strategy in go-to-market strategy. So help us understand a little bit about that versus sort of going to a B2B strategy and working with companies that are either manufacturing or deploying solar panels or working through channel partners rather than going directly to consumer?
Yeah, so thank you. For the first question, we have raised close to $9 million up to this point. And we are raising our first Series A at this moment. So we have been supported with many organizations, but we've been lucky to get contracts. So actual contract to deliver products, as I mentioned. So that's one. In terms of B2C or B2C, so far, most of our customer has been came from B2C. We are planning on B2B as we get more matured up. For example, modular housing and modular vertical farming is one of those B2B business channel that we are currently having conversation. None of them has been fully matured up, but we are working on the B2B for full scale up. But B2C has been working up very well for us up to this point.
Thank you.
Any questions, Cindy or Seth?
So I would just like to ask a follow-up on Nikhil's question, which is, could you define your kind of ideal customer and who kind of the target audience specifically is?
Yeah, so as you notice that cooling, heating, and electricity is almost everywhere you go, you need these three. So it was very difficult for us to narrow down to a very specific beachhead market. And just a 4-minute presentation, so I didn't get to that all we picked up. So our very first, very targeted beachhead market is that vertical farming, for many number of reasons that we have. Vertical farmings are acting like a data center without any technical risk. So they consume electricity 24/7 and use heat cooling 24/7. And that has been a fantastic opportunity for us. The second one, which is very aligned to the vertical farming, is larger scale commercial spaces. And the very first, the very first customers that we have is from agriculture and commercial spaces. So these are the very initial target spaces we are focusing on.
And then I think we have time for one quick question from Cindy.
I just, the 9 million kind of caught me off guard a little bit. So I'd love to kind of find out who was the primary source? Is that all non-diluted funds, or was that a part of a raise?
It was, we are an infrastructure company, and that's why we managed to get contact from IESO, NGIF, and also SCTC, ERA, OCI, and many others. So yes, we got a portion of the private money from this organization and got matched up with the governmental organization.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to our judges and Hanif for that great presentation. Really excited to see the progress over the coming years.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
And with that, we are ready to move to our next presenting company. It's my pleasure to welcome Dan Bortnav from Bicep to the virtual stage.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Bortnave, and I'm the founder of Bicep, a medical device company that creates devices to enhance the mobility of the aging and disabled populations. So my whole journey started when I was doing my Master of Applied Health Sciences, and I started working as a kinesiologist in many different long-term care homes, retirement homes, and hospitals. And I found a manner in which we did our ambulation training relatively unsafe and inefficient. I found two main problems. The first is that it takes 2 to 3 healthcare practitioners to complete this training. So one therapist to simply walk with the patient, and another therapist to push a wheelchair from behind. And just hiring the second therapist on a part-time basis costs the North American healthcare system $3.6 billion annually. And then in some cases, like we always did, we didn't have that second therapist there. So we tried doing the work of 2 by ourselves, and that often led to workplace injury. And we know that 45% of workplace injuries in a long-term care hospital or retirement home setting come from patient transfers. So in order to combat both these issues, we invented the ARM, the Ambulation Retraining Mobility Mechanism. This device attaches any wheelchair to any walker, allows the patient to transfer themselves from the wheelchair to the walker, and allows the patient to walk with the walker with the wheelchair trail behind them, eliminating the need for a second therapist. And that was our first iteration of the device. We now have this device, which includes our transfer mode. So by simply dropping down these legs, now the patients can transfer themselves from a chair to a bed, to another chair, to a sink, counter, shower, or any other surface, in addition to being able to ambulate with the wheelchair behind them. This device is made from a light medical grade aluminum. It is adjustable for different lengths, for gait patterns, for different types of patients. It is very durable, having a 600-pound limit per side, and is a universal wheelchair attachment. In addition to that, this latest iteration has a safety mechanism to release in case patients become entrapped in the device. And we went back and redid the device so that you can attach it just on one side and still have the same effect. This device is compatible with all major wheelchair manufacturers, such as the ones listed here and many more. So in order to validate this device, we did a research study in the Niagara region with over 60 long-term care patients. And we measured the difference in their walking speed, distance, self-confidence, and fear of falling when using the ARM device compared to that traditional method of having two therapists. And what we found is their walk speed actually increased by 24%, walking distance increased by 15%, self-confidence shot up by 40%, and fear of falling went down by 20%, all while using the ARM device. So we did test it with seniors, but we also did a couple of case studies in which these special populations, we did individual case studies such as amputees, spinal cord injury patients, orthopedic outpatients, stroke patients, MS patients, Parkinson's or head injury. So you can see this device is very, very versatile across a number of different special populations. For our market opportunity, we're going after the global patient handling device, but we're more interested in the patient transfer device market and reaching an immediate target of $135 million. In regards to competitors, well, we do own the patent for the device, the utility patent that attaches any wheelchair to any walker. So the secondary characteristics of our device is that it does help with patient transfer, and there are a couple of devices out there that simply do patient transfer. However, they're all very expensive, bulky, and require at least one operator, where our device promotes independence and allows for patients to ambulate as well. For business model, we're going to be doing direct sales, B2C, that'll account for 30% of our sales, and then distributor, which will be selling the device for $1,000, and that will account for 70%. We're also looking at licensing and select market opportunities such as India and China. Over the last couple of years, we've raised over $515,000 worth of funding. We had FDA and Health Canada approval. We have a utility patent issued in the United States and Canada, have 2 distributors acquired, and we just went to market in June and have $40,000 in sales. And thank you very much for the presentation. I want to echo Zaid's comments that sometimes the simplest and are the most effective medical devices, and that's exactly what they are, a simple device with tremendous impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate you introducing us to the device. I'd love to turn it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe Nikhil, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Dan, so to talk a little bit about the competition and who else is trying to solve this problem and what are the different ways in which they're trying to do so, and why do you believe that your solution is better?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this came of a spur of idea moment. I was trying to help myself in my own practice. My first device, I tried attaching a string from wheelchair to a walker. That didn't fare so well. But again, because this was such a novel device, I was actually shocked that there is no other device on the market like this that attaches a wheelchair to a walker for the purposes of mobility training. Like I said, with the transfer device, there are a couple other devices out there, but they're very large transfer devices and need to be transported room to room, very expensive. And in regards to storage, there's not many places to store. So oftentimes hospitals, long-term care, they're sharing one just because they simply don't have the storage space for them. So in regards to ambulation, attachments from wheelchair to walker, I know it might be cliche to say, but there are no direct competitors. And that's why we hold the utility patent of any apparatus that attaches a standalone wheelchair to a standalone walker.
Thank you.
Any questions, Cindy?
What's your biggest barrier to entry? Yeah, I know you've got the 40,000 already, but is there anything that you can see that might be the biggest thing holding back continued sale?
Absolutely. So traditionally, it's always been trying to penetrate group purchasing organization and procurement companies for large organizations such as hospitals, long-term care, retirement homes. But in the last year, it's actually been COVID. So our biggest market is usually the ones that are most affected from COVID, such as the long-term care homes. So trying to initiate conversation with some of the long-term care home chains, especially a lot of the more independent ones, has been more difficult simply because they've been in lockdown. And that's why we decided to wait until this June to begin sales, simply because we wanted to be able to optimize our ability to talk to these individuals.
Any questions, Seth or Daniel?
Yeah, certainly. Dan, thank you for the presentation. Great to hear about the company. I was hoping you could just explain a little bit more about the team, the current kind of state of the team, and then where you need to get to kind of deliver on some of your targets.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the team right now, it consists of 5 individuals. Myself, our CEO, David D'Angelo, Professor David Dyer, who's in charge of our research. We have Elira, who is in charge of our marketing team. And then we have Sohaib, who's our lead engineer. The assembly process is really simple, that we are right now doing most of the assembly for the small time orders. However, we are looking to expand that as soon as we're looking to raise $500,000 for January just to expand our team. That will include sales as well as manufacturing. But like I said, the device is very simple. We get a lot of our parts ordered from the United States as well as overseas, and then we assemble them here, do all our safety testing, packaging, and then ship them off to our customers. So with the team we have right now, I can support the operation that we're running right now. However, when we look to scale immediately, we're going to have to bring out some more laborers to help with assembly, some sales teams as well.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you very much to our judges. It was really great learning about, again, simple solutions to complex problems, and appreciate you taking the time to share that with us today.
Thank you so much.
Well, wonderful. With that, it's my pleasure to welcome our next presenting company. Let's welcome Dr. Chris Ahuja, CEO and CMO of Intelligex.
Thank you very much. So I thought I'd just start by telling a little bit of the story of where Intelligex came from. So this is a gentleman, 25-year-old, who came to our clinic. Unfortunately, he dove headfirst into a lake and sustained a severe spinal cord injury of the neck region. And he was paralyzed from the neck down and very diligently completed his rehabilitation. And he came to us about 2 years later and he said, I'm about the same. What's next? How do I continue to get better? And the answer we had for him was the same that we have for every one of our patients, which was nothing. There are no effective treatments for spinal cord injury. And it was encounter after encounter like that that really drove us to try and find a better solution for spinal cord injury. And that was the genesis of Intelligex. So we're a healthcare company. We provide precision stem cell-based therapies for diseases of the brain and spinal cord. And the spinal cord is what I'll be focusing on today. And if you're not familiar with spinal cord injury, there's only a few things you need to know about it. First is that it's actually much more prevalent than you may think. We're talking about 350,000 individuals across North America, over 1 million across high-income G7 countries. But it doesn't matter where you live, there are no effective treatments at all. And the other thing to know about spinal cord injury is that it's remarkably expensive. It's actually the most expensive major medical condition, more than heart disease or stroke or cancer. We're talking about $1.5 to $4.5 million per patient lifetime in just direct care costs alone. And so what that generates is this tremendous willingness to pay in society of over $1 million per patient for even a therapy that's able to deliver small amounts of motor improvement in grip function or biceps or deltoid function, allowing people to then take care of themselves. And of course, those together create a really tremendous total addressable market that is essentially completely untapped right now. So in trying to find the optimal solution, we and others really gravitated towards neural stem cells. So what these are a spinal cord and brain stem cell that can form all the building blocks that are lost after an injury. And we've targeted this to 2 different pathways. One is acute spinal cord injury, which is called IntelliCells, and chronic spinal cord injury, which is called SMART cells. And just as a brief snippet of the science, the SMART cells, essentially we took them and we bioengineered them specifically for spinal cord injury, which is something that has never been done before. And if you look at the injured spinal cord in these sections, purple is normal spinal cord and white is an area of injury. And usually with no treatment, it's mostly an area of injury and there's not a lot of spared spinal cord. Neural stem cells can help to spare that a little more, but our smart cells were able to spare that spinal cord quite tremendously, allow it to regenerate, and allow our spinal cord injury models to begin walking, eating, and taking care of themselves again, which is really quite exciting. And that made quite the splash, being called the most impactful stem cell discovery of the year. And so what we did first was we secured our IP. So from University Health Network, we have 22 enumerated pieces of intellectual property related to IntelliCells and smart cells. And then we put together really a crack team of folks who could help support that. So Dr. Michael Failings is the most published spinal cord researcher in history. Myself and Rafi Hofstein is our executive chairman. We have a really phenomenal scientific advisory board who helps us with developing these therapies further and how to manufacture them. And really, we combine that with this fantastic business advisory board, bringing many different aspects of the big pharma process to bear. And what makes us different is that we have 2 cell therapies that can actually be generated from patients themselves, and they can attack both the acute and the chronic injury phases, which encompasses the vast majority of our patients, making us the first to be able to do this in the world. And we're currently raising our seed fund with 4 main goals. So the first is to create GMP or clinical grade smart cells and IntelliCells, to test these in preclinical GMP testing, and then to bring those into a safety and toxicology package for IND filing in order to begin our phase 1/2A trial. And so we've raised funds already to begin this. We're still continuing to raise our seed funds. We've established lab space at Johnson & Johnson's Innovation J Labs, as well as at University Health Network. And we're continuing to make strides in creating those clinical grade therapies. So hopefully have the first solution so that when somebody comes to us in the clinic and says, what's next? How do I continue to get better? We actually have an answer for them, which would be IntelliCells and smart cells. Thank you.
Chris, thank you so much for bringing us through that, incredible new science. It's great to hear about the breakthroughs in these spaces that, at least from first glance, feel like we've been in a similar conversation for a really long time. So it's great to see these new developments. I'd love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Is there anyone who'd like to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll start us off, Alec. Chris, thank you very much for the presentation. Great to hear about the company. I'm curious if you could just talk to the issue a little bit more. And so how you would define an acute spinal cord injury or a chronic one, and just kind of really understanding what that looks like.
Yeah, certainly. So the acute spinal cord injuries are generally considered within the first 2 weeks of injury. So the folks who are coming in by ambulance and are essentially in their ICU stay in hospital. And the chronic injuries are generally defined as greater than 6 months. So that's anybody even up to several decades after their injury, who are currently living with the sequelae of that injury. And so the 2 therapies that we developed are very much on purpose. From first principles, there are fundamental differences in the biology of the acutely injured and the chronically injured spinal cord. And so we need different bioengineered cell therapies to attack those 2. And the interesting thing is that the same bioengineering that we did to modify the acute and chronic stem cells, they're actually very applicable to other disease states, which I didn't talk about. So the acute IntelliCells are very applicable to multiple sclerosis and ALS. And the chronic ones are very applicable to traumatic brain injury, stroke, and cerebral palsy. So spinal cord injury, because it has orphan disease status, we can get into it quickly with trials with the FDA. But that's sort of the, in a way, lower hanging fruit to get into even larger central nervous system markets.
Great, thank you.
Any question from you, Daniel? I know you didn't get one in on the last one.
Yeah, I got disconnected. Thank you. Really neat technology, Chris. Just out of curiosity, sorry, I missed about 5 minutes or 2 minutes of your presentation, so you may have discussed this, but is the idea here to actually bring this into the marketplace and license it so other users would be able to, or doctors would be able to utilize this technology? Or is the business model here is your practice will be the only one that would be able to provide this service?
No, this would certainly be considered a worldwide therapy. So our plan is to bring this forward to clinical trial and bring it through clinical trial with FDA, EMA, Health Canada approval. that really allows this therapy to be delivered worldwide. So we're not only creating the stem cells and that technology, which we can distribute to physicians everywhere for patients everywhere. We're also delivering some of the delivery apparatus, for example, in the operating room. We're very familiar with the workflow, so we know how to inject stem cells. We know how to thaw stem cells. We know how to deliver stem cells in liquid nitrogen. And for that, we're partnering with Canadian Blood Services. So there's a series of infrastructure behind that as well, which we're also developing, which didn't have so much time for in this bit.
Thanks, Chris. I talked a little bit about what the economics of this looks like, in terms of creating enough of the stem cells so that you can populate the market with it, the infrastructure required to administer them. How do you go to market, and how do you, what do the economics look like? Is it a license model? Is it a one-time purchase that clinics need to make? And what's the revenue opportunity here?
Yeah, so the model is that it's a one-time purchase on a per dose basis, so a single dose. The other companies that are out there right now that are trying to get into this space have estimated a single dose of about $900,000, which is about a 90% markup actually from the cost to manufacture. So the cost to manufacture is high, but the willingness to pay is so tremendous that there's therapies right now, for example, Zolgensma for muscular dystrophy, that's about $2.8 million. And this is the way that the trend is going, is that if you have a chronic disease that is treatable, because the cost to society is in many, many millions, the therapies actually can be very valuable, and therefore higher income countries are willing to pay for it. Obviously in lower income countries, we have to change the model a little bit, but these are single use vials. We'd be the manufacturer, and neural stem cells are immortal. So once you create the cell line, they can be propagated in perpetuity.
Thank you.
And I think we have time for one question from Cindy.
Oh, good. Wonderful what you're doing. I think it's interesting and amazing. One biggest question that I have is moving from clinical to market. What are your primary regulatory and ethical barriers?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I'll start with the ethical piece actually first. The reason that we've taken what I would say is a slightly more difficult route as opposed to the first to market route, which is a couple of our competing companies, is that we wanted to avoid the ethical dilemma. So these are induced pluripotent stem cell derived. So these can be derived actually from the patient themselves. They're not from embryonic sources, which many other stem cell therapies, including the two that I mentioned before, are. The regulatory pathway is, as I mentioned, the IND filing is what allows us to then complete the clinical trials. We have to complete 3 phases of clinical trials. Because, because this is an orphan disease market, we can actually have a fast track on that. So we can actually complete this in an expedited fashion in about 3 years, which is quite a bit faster than most other clinical trials.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really excited to learn about the work you're doing, and certainly, really excited to see those clinical trials develop over the coming years, and incredibly hopeful that this is something that's impactful for all the people out there that are struggling with with this condition, with these conditions, as well as a whole assortment of neurological conditions. So thank you again for sharing the story with us.
Thank you very much.
With that, it's my pleasure to welcome our next presenting company. Let's please welcome Matt Patrician, CEO of Query, to the virtual stage.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Matt Patrician. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Query Inc. And I've worked in the public sector for 20 years in IT. I was also the municipal industry manager for Esri Canada, global leader in geospatial software. At Query, we're connecting smart homes with smart cities through the use of virtual assistants and smart speakers. And Query was founded out of a passion for 4 things: open data and government transparency, community engagement, location intelligence, and an understanding that where things are impacts our decision making. And finally, voice technology and putting smart home devices to work to get better and quicker information from our cities and towns. Being first to market is our main competitive advantage, and there's no other platform offering an enterprise-wide plug and play integration between cities and citizens using voice-enabled technology. Our solution is simple, elegant, and its affordability and rapid deployment means low staff time to administer with a quick ROI. Leveraging our emerging partnerships with global leaders in IT and GIS gives us another strong advantage. Cities across North America are looking for ways to better engage with their citizens and at the same time digitally transform their services. These services, common to all cities, use a standard pattern of business systems that can be hooked into the Query Cloud with very little effort. A new city can be enabled in as quick as 30 minutes. And smart speaker sales continue to grow, and 34% of the population use a voice assistant each month. During our first year, we've collaborated and tested our platform with over 20 municipalities, and since then, we've seen over 68,000 interactions with our voice applications. Through our time working in the public sector, we've learned that there's an opportunity to help cities solve a common problem that's experienced by the residents. People struggle to find information about city services and their property on municipal websites. Call volumes are growing and wait times are increasing for 311 callers when they can't find what they're looking for. And the impact on city budgets during the pandemic has put many cities in the red while increasing the need to engage with citizens. Chicago, Illinois, for example, answered 2 million calls in 2019 with an average cost of $6 per call, and that's a direct cost of $12 million, and it's growing each year. Brampton, Ontario's call center consistently misses their target of answering all calls within 30 seconds. The solution is what we call Q11 and our voice integration platform called the Query Cloud, which connects citizens to current, accurate, and authoritative local government information instantly on whichever device you're using or wherever you are, whenever you like. Our solution helps increase customer satisfaction, a metric that all cities want to improve on. And Query frees up call center staff so that they can spend their time helping customers with more complex and time-consuming questions. And lastly, the solution offers significant reductions in cost per call, which has a positive impact on a city's budget. Just imagine looking out your living room window at your snow-covered street and asking, Alexa, where's my plow? Or Siri, sign my kids up for swimming lessons at the nearest pool. And hey, Google, where do I go to vote? Last November, we helped over 200 voters in Collin County, Texas, find their voting location and their current wait times, helping them to get to the polls efficiently and safely, avoiding the crowds. Our subscription model is T-shirt sized, and it's based on city's population and call volumes. Affordable monthly subscriptions allow for easy procurement by any city and any department, and citizens can access Q11 on their devices for no charge. We've got the potential to scale rapidly and into other business verticals with ease. We're an emerging partner of Esri and Bang the Table. And as we grow the Query Cloud platform, we're creating hooks into many other common government business systems. In under a year, we built and tested our solution in real world scenarios, and Query has caught the attention of experts and thought leaders in voice tech and the IT industries. We've had really exciting growth in our first 2 years. We survived a 5-month pivot during the beginning of the pandemic, where we were focused on delivering authoritative COVID-19 data via SMS and voice technology to 165 subscribers. And we built a team that understands that we understand these municipal systems and how to effectively help local government connect with their citizens using smart home technology. And thanks very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Matt, thank you so much for sharing more about the work you're doing at Query. Really interesting, and would love my municipal services to be a little bit easier to access. Would love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe we'll start with you, Cindy, because you've been stuck last on the last couple ones.
I guess my biggest question really revolves around the ability to easily come into this market and what your moat is to protect not only your intellectual property, but protect the idea and for you to maintain that competitive advantage.
Great. Hi, Cindy. Yeah, so what our main to get to where we are, we've spent many years in the municipal industry, and through a really tight network of public sector employees, we've been able to reach a large audience with this technology really quickly. And so that, I believe, is totally our best competitive advantage, is getting there first. The solution itself is pretty delightful from the user's perspective when they interact with city data. So I think that has been very helpful for us. And I believe that with a lot of public-facing city services, once you get your residents using it, it'd be very difficult to migrate away from that solution. Cities typically have solutions in place for many, many years without moving into other systems. It's very hard to forklift or migrate from a particular system.
Any additional questions from our judges?
Matt, question, and thank you for the presentation. In terms of who owns informing the public about the offering, is it Query or is it through the municipality?
Right, thanks, Seth. It's a collaboration. So first off, it is an engagement and a bit of a marketing exercise that the city needs to take on whenever they're providing a new service. It's something that they would promote through their social networks, through various media forums, but through some of our additional offerings, we do offer some geo-targeted advertising and marketing for these municipalities.
Thank you.
Matt, quick question about traction. If I may have missed this on the slide. It was only up for a few seconds, but is it true that you have about 20-25 customers, if I'm reading that chart right? And if so, who are they? Can you name a few? And what kind of usage, more importantly, what kind of usage are you seeing within these municipalities?
Yeah, that's correct. So on that slide that I flew through, we collaborated with 20 municipalities in North America. We have currently 6 clients. I can name a few. Some of them we haven't launched yet. A couple in the United States, Sugar Land, Texas. We're beginning to work with the village of Pinehurst, North Carolina. And we also are working with some local single tier municipalities, and we're working with the region of Durham currently.
Thank you.
I guess I'll ask this last question, but in the next, so I really, because I'm in government, I sort of have a good understanding how useful this technology can be for residents. My last question, Mike, will be is, in 2 to 3 years, where do you see this business? Or what do you need to get to where you need to be in 2 to 3 years?
Thanks, Daniel. So what we really need to focus on at Query right now is technical support during business hours. And because we are working across time zones, those hours are pretty long. So our next bit of growth is going to be around staffing and building up the team to be able to support. And our projections for the next 2 to 3 years get us to a point where we feel we can comfortably add additional staff to be able to support that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Matt, thank you so much for sharing some more about Query. Really appreciate the thoughtful questions from our judges, and I hope to see the system in a city near me soon.
So thanks a lot, Alec.
And wonderful. I want to give a special thanks to our audience for staying with us through this great event, through listening to all these pitches, just an incredible group of companies. But now, last but not least, we're ready to welcome our final presenter to the stage. Let's welcome Ingrid Polini, founder and CEO of Safety Docs Global, to the virtual stage.
Hello, everyone. We are a compliance and permit management software, which is a $570 billion market. We represent multiple clients on the Fortune 500 list and made more than $500,000 in revenue last year. I'm Ingrid Polini, the CEO, and this is Safety Docs. Our average customer has to manage around 20,000 documents a year, and that's usually done by Excel spreadsheets. This creates multiple challenges. Low productivity when trying to organize tasks and execute them so documents are renewed on time, risk control and the loss of information, as well as making sure the company doesn't get fined or lose money due to closures, and costs and forecasts, where the prediction of how many documents the company has to renew is not even clear. So let's look together at a typical company. This property management company has more than 1,300 properties. For each of those properties, there's a minimum of 40 documents that need to be updated and kept on top of. That equates to more than 52,000 documents to manage and renew. Safety Docs has designed, built, and launched a software solution to solve these issues. So we focus on 3 pillars. The first is cost reduction. The number of fines and overdue licenses or permits can be managed to 0, and we have proof of that with our clients. Also, gains in productivity for the employees that work in the sector so they can focus on other priorities. When we talk about dynamic and assertive decisions, the graphs and reports give the management team precise information into where to act next, and a photograph of how the compliance documents look today. As for risk management, the loss of information doesn't really occur because all the tasks and all the next steps are in the platform. So for example, if an employee is not in the office or there's a change of personnel, all the information and steps are safely stored. This is the Safety Docs platform. You can see on the left side of the screen all the different reports, risks, and goal management tools that are used by our clients. This helps with future forecasting and budgeting processes. The one at the screen, for example, clearly shows exactly how many documents are due for renewal, expired, and compliant. Simple, clean UX that is user-friendly. Enterprise software is a $571 billion market worldwide. And in Canada, this market is around $50 billion and growing. Top of mind for Canadian CIOs, according to Gartner, is cloud software and security. Safety Docs is hitting the right notes. We focus on mining, food manufacturing, and food services market now. Mining alone invests $114 million in tech, and regulatory compliance was one of the top 10 concerns for executives in Canada. For food manufacturing and food services, each market invests more than $5 billion in IT. These markets are heavily regulated, and that's not going to change. We've been building a strong stable of clients representing several Fortune 500 companies over the last 5 years, gaining traction globally as we continue to onboard more organizations weekly. Our retention rate is 98%, and many of those companies have been with us for more than 4 years. Safety Docs has been profitable since its first year of operation, and we have expanded to new markets in Latin America and North America. We have more than 50 clients globally, and we are in a SaaS format that has scalability and allows us to focus on growth. Our projections have us hitting the $1 million mark next year with a healthy profit margin. We have a great team working with us. I'm the CEO, focused on leadership, technology, and growing our team of 10 employees, joined by my co-founder, whose expertise is in permits, consulting, and business management. At this time, we're working with several accelerator programs, allowing us to focus growing our company with high profit and low costs, while offering our clients a great customer experience. This is Safety Docs, a company built with passion so companies can focus on what they do best, and it will take care of their paperwork. Thank you.
Ingrid, thank you so much for sharing the Safety Docs story, and what an interesting market that is just massive to be going after and trying to tackle. I'd love to throw it to our judges for any questions that they have. Maybe Seth, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Ingrid, thank you so much for the presentation. Great to hear about the business. Congratulations on the traction to date. I'm curious on kind of traction in sales, what it's going to take to really scale the business. And so taking the, 5 years and $500,000 in revenue and really kind of growing that number substantially.
Of course. So most of our revenue today comes from Latin America, and that number tends to double in the next few years as we grow our company in North America. When we do the conversion from Latin America, especially during COVID times, it gets pretty weird. But we are planning to bring more, and we are planning around 10 positions next year to really grow, especially on sales in North and Latin America, and tackle those markets and penetrate on those markets. So our main clients today come from Brazil and Canada, and we're planning to penetrate in other markets that we are present with a couple clients as well.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Quick question. What gives I've seen a few document companies out in the market, but what gives you guys the competitive advantage over your competitors right now?
Of course, that's a great question. So what gives us the competitive advantage is that we are specifying for permits and compliance documents. And what we do is doing all the workflow and all the management of tasks for big companies. What that means is that they can control different documents for different states or different provinces on the same platform and make that full list of documents instead of controlling them individually. So the HQ can set exactly what documents they're expecting for each province and control that, with bringing everyone together to control that, as well as the risk management and goal management that are not present with our current competition.
Any additional questions from our judges?
I just have one as well. Just curious as to some of your SaaS metrics and how they look in terms of your AR, MRR, your cost of client acquisition, I think is the primary one I'd like to focus on, and lifetime value of a client, of a customer.
Of course. So our lifetime value of the client is, it has been 3 years now, because most of it, we have like a 98% rate, retention rate. So it's pretty long. Our cost of acquisition is not that big. So if I'm not mistaken, it's $2,000, which is paid off within the first couple of months of the client. And if it's a big client, it pays even less than that. And then for our ARR last year, it was 450,000, because we don't charge the initial upload of the system. We just break that down into the ARR that they pay, like, and basically break it down into the monthly fee. So most of our revenue comes from recurrent revenue.
I think we have time for one final question from Nikhil, if you'd like to get one in.
Sure. Ingrid, thanks for the presentation. Focus on is in Latin America, and I know you've got a SaaS-based business. So firstly, just talk a little bit about language as you come to North America. But more importantly, to what extent is your deployments sort of customized for the particular workflows of the customer? Because one of the constraints one of the advantages of a SaaS business is you don't do a lot of customization, they get the solution. But it sounds, in terms of the business, that a lot of customization may be required for it. So how do you balance out the SaaS model with the customization required by your customers?
Of course. So the great thing about our platform is that it allows us to give them a base into what to work on with, like the documents and the tests and all of that, but they can customize it specifically. There's parts of customizations that we have done that we separate in different modules. So today we have the permits, we have the real estate module, we have other modules that were done with clients in with the help of clients for specific targets, that we don't mix it with our clients. Also, the way that we have done with our platform, it allows us to customize for some clients, or like customize specific reports and all that without necessarily applying to the other customers. So the way that we have done our deployment allow us to be customizable in the same way as scaling it, and being able to maybe customize and then make it available for other clients as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ingrid. Another thanks to our judges. Really great to learn about Safety Docs Global, and best of luck at the next stage of development.
Thank you.
And with that, we've had 9 incredible presenting companies here today. Our judges have a ridiculously difficult job in front of them to judge and score and ultimately select our winner. But we will be back in just about 5 minutes to announce our second place and first place winner. who's walking away with the cash and who's going forward to the global finals and a chance for $1 million. So please stay with us. We'll be right back. thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for bearing with us. It's so excited to be able to give you this final announcement of our winners and everyone that participated today. It was 9 incredible pitches. I wish we could award all of them, the grand prize and support all of them going on, perpetually to the global finals. But unfortunately, we can only award 1 second place and 1 first place, and that's where we're at right now. Just a quick reminder as to what everyone's competing for and what our winners will be receiving. The first place winner will be receiving $10,000 or $15,000 in cash prizes, as well as a guaranteed spot at the global finals. The second place will be receiving $10,000, as well as a wild card entry and the opportunity to potentially go to the global finals as well, where $1 million will be on the line for the top presenting companies. So, without further ado, and then in addition to these cash prizes, all of the global finalists will receive $100,000 in in-kind support and services through the One Valley Perks program. So every tool, every tech you could need to grow your business, we have incredible savings or free access to offer our global finalists. But now, without any further ado, I'm excited to announce our second place winner. The Entrepreneurship World Cup Canada runner-up is Intelligex. It is my absolute pleasure to congratulate Intelligex and the entire Intelligex team on the second place win and $10,000 prize money. Congratulations, Dr. Chris Ahuja and your entire team. So excited to see what comes next for Intelligex. And now finally, our first place, grand prize winner of the EWC National Finals, who will receive $15,000 cash prize, as well as a guaranteed spot in the global finals, is Erthos. Again, an incredible presentation and pitch, incredible product. Huge congratulations to Nuha, as well as the entire Erthos team. Can't wait to see that global finals pitch and an attempt to go after $1 million in cash prizes. So with that, I'd love to thank all of our presenting companies again. A special shout out to our first and second place winner, but all of our presenting companies were absolutely incredible, and we can't wait to see what you accomplish over the coming months and years. As we wrap up, want to just, again, congratulate everyone and want to thank our national organizers and partners. A special thanks to the entire One Valley team that made this possible. I know everyone's been working night and day, as well as to the Startup Canada team, who's just an incredible partner and collaborator anytime you want to do something with the Canadian startup ecosystem. And again, another special thanks to our global organizers, the Miss Global Forum, the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and the Global Education and Leadership Foundation, who have made all of these possible and who will be bringing us to the global finals towards the end of this year. So with that, this is the national finals of the Canadian Entrepreneurship World Cup signing off. And, again, congratulations to all of our team, and best of luck to Erthos at the global finals. Thank you again.